America is home to 33 million small businesses, the beating heart of communities across the country.
And proof that the American dream is still alive.
This is a show about those dreamers and doers and the communities they serve.
Their real life stories.
Their struggles and successes.
Their grit, determination, and passion.
And the people who fight
to keep their American dream alive.
I'm Alfredo Ortiz.
I'm Elaine Parker.
And it's time for another episode of Main Street Matters,
America's small business megaphone. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. I'm Elaine Parker with the Job Creators Network, and today we are joined by Rich Gandhi. Rich is an immigrant who came to the United States from Mumbai, India at the age of 13, and he's worked tirelessly ever since to build his version of the American dream. Today, he's a successful hotel owner and multi-brand franchisee operating Marriott, Hilton, and Hyatt properties along the East Coast from Boston to Washington, D.C. We're speaking with Rich about how the shutdown has impacted his business and his take on the upcoming governor's race in New Jersey since he is a resident there. Rich, welcome to Main Street Matters.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Well, it's a very busy time, and I was very interested in talking to you about the shutdown and what we're starting to feel. You know, in the early few days of the shutdown, it was really about federal employees being furloughed. But what I think people weren't realizing is the spillover on small businesses and even, you know, hotels and barbershops and pizza parlors, dry cleaners. You know, when you start taking away the activity of people coming to work and eating lunch and those activities, people traveling into DC and needing to stay in the hotel, how has this month impacted you with this federal shutdown?
So to start with, you know, we actually own a property in Maryland, in Laurel, Maryland, and I will tell you, we are heavily dependent on the government business. And since the government shut down, our business has declined close to 30% year over year for that specific month. That's a huge impact for us, especially because the hotel business is about a 10 to 12% profit margin. And, you know, that's on your overall revenue. And if you lose 30% of your top line, you're basically digging into your pocket just to support the asset. In our situation, a lot of the discretionary funding for a lot of the patrons that come to the hotels has disappeared, right? I mean, just like you said, that, you know, people do not have funds like, you know, little barbershops or, you know, little restaurants, pizza shops, what you may have. These folks who basically sell these services and they provide these services, whatever profits that they make, sometimes they use it. Hey, I need to, you know, it's an anniversary weekend. I want to have a staycation with my girlfriend. I want to be away from the kids or what you may have. They can't take those vacations because their revenue has dropped. And they can't afford to basically say, oh, I have excess amount of money that I can go spend or splurge on a hotel or a restaurant out there to eat. So those things have taken a hit. So overall, the ripple effects are much larger than the government shutdown portrays. Not, you know, personally, it doesn't matter, Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter. I think they just need to reopen the government and hash out whatever issues that they have later on. I mean, you know, the government officials, you know, the congressional leaders, they're still getting paid. But, you know, Main Street, you know, is not getting paid. Maybe if we cut back on them, they will start realizing what's really happening out there on the street. You know, yeah, I just personally feel that I think the government shutdown is kind of a little overrated. I think they need to just get back into DC, figure it out, and hash it out instead of basically finger pointing.
Exactly. What kind of measures have you taken within the business to cut costs?
We have taken a lot of measures. We've had to lay off some people, even though we didn't want to lay off some people because we just have to control certain expenses. And it's not pretty because you have employees that you have working for you. Some of them 2, 3, 4 years, what you may have, and um, you just have to make those hard decisions that look, I can't afford it. I'm digging into my own pocket, but maybe you can go collect unemployment. You're hoping for that. That's what unemployment insurance is for. And a lot of these employees can't even collect that because to file the paperwork, somebody needs to be there and to accept these files. And it's a big domino effect on a lot of these employees. And
Yeah.
it also affects their health care because a lot of these folks get health care from our businesses that we provide their health care. So, of course, their health insurance terminates. And like health insurance is not cheap by any means anymore. It's very expensive for what little that they provide. And you get denial of coverage. Like we talked about that. I had just come back from surgery from last week, and I've already gotten a letter that I've been to an out-of-network hospital for an emergency service, and then I'm going to cover certain claims. And I was like, whatever. It's not even important. It was a life-threatening issue that I needed to resolve, and they're concerned about coverage that I've been to an out-of-network hospital. So,
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm so glad that everything is okay for you, and I've talked to a lot of people who have unfortunately made that mistake of, and it's not really a mistake, but it's a decision you have to make when you're in that situation to just go to the hospital and take care of a life-threatening situation. So we're very glad that that worked out for you, at least on the health side. So you're dealing with these issues on the shutdown and the impact on your business, but you also are a resident of New Jersey. And so you've got the headwinds of the government shutdown. You're looking at this governor's race that's really heating up. And it's currently really a toss-up when you look at the polls. And I was just curious what you can tell us about the race and Jack Ciattarelli's chances from your position on the ground.
sure. I personally believe that the governor's race is, like you said, it's very close. It's neck to neck. And um, I personally believe, this is my opinion, I think that the policies that Trump has put into effect where, you know, um, illegals should not get um, health insurance and the benefits that a lot of the American citizens should be getting is very critical because in our state of New Jersey, we see a lot of illegals getting a lot of benefits that the American citizens should be getting, but they do not receive them. At the same token, in our state, our expenses are through the roof. In New Jersey, the cost for health insurance, automobile insurance, you name anything that has the word insurance, has doubled over the last year. Whatever it was last year, today it's doubled. Um, we also have an issue with just in general with utility costs. Every cost in the state of New Jersey has doubled or quadrupled in certain instances if you look at the last 3 or 4 years. And it's primarily because of Governor Murphy's policies. I personally believe that Governor Murphy, um, really tried to make New Jersey the California of the East. And, he might have done a great job of bringing in certain businesses like Netflix and Paramount Pictures as movie studios into New Jersey, but it has also created a lot of issues where we have um, just laden with expenses because the green initiative that he's put into play is not really resonating with the New Jersey environment because we don't have the infrastructure. We are a very old um, area, if you would. We are part of the original 13 colonies, right? And a lot of these, some of these homes are 200 years old. Some of these neighborhoods are 2, 3, 400 years old, and you're asking us to upgrade services to certain new modern standards, but they have not installed the infrastructure for it. And to penalize business owners, resident owners, homeowners, saying that if you don't have some of these things, you're going to be penalized. That's a problem. It is costing our um, residents in New Jersey is causing them a lot of grief. I mean, mass transit's a major issue in this state. We don't even have proper roads. I mean, if you come to most of New Jersey, it's like a third world country. You'll see potholes everywhere. And it's not like the rest of the country where you have decent roads. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the right services, and they are worried about just taxing us and not really providing any services. I think that's a problem. And I don't know which way I personally don't know how Mikey Sherrill is going to basically put in her efforts in improving the offices, because I haven't seen any game plan from her. But I do like the way Jack Chitterelli has basically put his game plan forward, and how he plans to actually improve things. He actually has specific goals in place of what will happen. I haven't seen them from Mikey, but I'm sure they're the race is close and they're putting things out, and we're keeping a close eye on it.
Well, New Jersey has notoriously been bad for small business. The climate is pretty tough. What do you think are some of the biggest issues holding small businesses like yours back in the state?
Well, there are lots of things. They put in eviction moratoriums. New Jersey State cannot evict people who do not pay rent. We have to go through court. The huge backlog is sometimes 9 months to a year. People don't pay rent. People will break into properties. The police department's hands are tied. Usually they say go to court. Everything has to be. The police will not help you until there's actually somebody getting stabbed or there's a gunshot wound. They let things ride that far out because their hands are tied. And some of these policies have to be rolled back, because residents or businesses, we can't do that. In my situation, we've had, rules that Governor Murphy put into place in COVID that have not been lifted even as of today, that we can't evict people. We cannot evict people from, if they stayed in a hotel room past 30 days, you can't evict them. If we have to evict them, we have to go to court. And sometimes it could be 9 months to a year and this person doesn't pay you rent. But you have to provide them services. You can't do anything about it. And the police department will not touch it. I mean, that's one big issue. The other issue is utility costs. They're astronomical. And insurance. Insurance for property is ridiculous. What New Jersey needs is tort reform. They need to stop frivolous lawsuits, silly slip and fall claims. It's like common sense is out the window. There's a lawsuit for everything. Everybody sues in New Jersey, and insurance companies just give out checks, and the premiums keep going up and up and up. And then they're like, oh, why can't you secure insurance? Well, nobody can. I actually have some employees who actually do not have insurance on their homes anymore, because they just frankly can't afford it. Their premium went from what they were paying was about, on a 2,000 square foot house, they were paying about, $1,200 for the year. Now they're paying close to $2,500, $3,000 a year for less coverage than what they had previously. And these are folks who are close to retirement. They need to cut expenses. They're like, what should I think about? Should I worry about health insurance? Should I worry about automobile insurance? Or should I worry about getting to work, putting food on the table? Nobody's sure.
Yeah, the tort reform is a big issue, and it's a state by state issue. You've dealt with some litigation and some frivolous lawsuits yourself. How has
Yeah.
that impacted your rates, and what types of litigation have you seen?
Well, um, I don't know if I mentioned this to you. We actually had a lawsuit from a snowstorm. There was a snowstorm going on, and a girl was wearing 4-inch heels in our parking lot. She slipped and fell. She hurt herself, and she sued us, saying that we didn't shovel the snow. But we are like, there's a snowstorm still going on. You're not supposed to be out in 4-inch heels. You should have worn sneakers or snowshoes or something along those lines. It's like common sense is, like I said, out the window. Another situation was a customer. They admit that they missed the curb. They were walking and they did not see the curb, even though the curb was painted yellow. That there's a great difference. Everything up to code. They missed the curb. They fall and they're suing the property owner, saying that, oh, I missed the curb and you owe me $100,000 because now I have to replace my kneecap. I'm sorry that I feel empathy for them, that, I'm sorry that you fell and you got hurt, but that there cannot be a lawsuit to everybody, even for your own negligence. There's no negligence on the folks who are basically doing the lawsuits, basically the plaintiffs. There's no negligence, contributory negligence clauses in the state of New Jersey. It's basically all falls on the property owner. It's almost like a crime to own property in the state of New Jersey. That's part of the reason a lot of people just leave. I mean, my property insurance on some of my properties that we used to pay on a commercial property, on a hotel, this hotel we used to pay annual insurance was about $45,000 a year total, and that same property we are talking close to 150,000. Same property, 150,000 of property insurance, and I actually just got told by that same insurance company because a pet owner brought in a pet. They were there with a friend of theirs. They stayed in the room together, and that the customer's pet bit the other customer. They were in the same room together. They rented the room together, and I, as a property owner, I'm liable. I have no way of proving that this did happen because it's behind closed doors. We have no proof. Nobody called an ambulance. Nothing. There was no record. But now I have this lawsuit on top of that we have to fight with our insurance company. My insurance company has basically said, I'm sorry, we will not be able to insure you starting next year. What am I supposed to do?
So let me get this straight. You have somebody who checked into your hotel with a friend. One of them brought their dog. Pet-friendly hotels, we're seeing that, all over the country, which, is a nice convenience if you're traveling with your pet. And
Right.
they're claiming that their dog bit their friend inside the hotel room, and you're liable?
That is correct.
I
That is
mean,
correct.
and so the insurance company, is it that the lawyers are betting that if they file the lawsuit, that it's cheaper to settle these lawsuit claims than to take them to trial?
That is correct. They basically just file them, and because it's a money grab, they can basically get 100 to 150,000 for doing nothing, because these insurance companies are like, we'll spend 100 to 150,000 in legal fees. Just write them a check and make it go away. And this is a problem because in the state of New Jersey, the laws are so construed against property owners or business owners, whether it's business or even a residential property. They're so against them that it's made it a living nightmare for people to own anything. I mean, people can file a lawsuit and they win every single time. Plaintiffs are actually, if you want to file a lawsuit, come to New Jersey. That's basically the motto right now, because the laws are actually so against the residents of the state of New Jersey. It's shameful.
Do you think if we had a losers pay system, that we would see a decrease in these types of frivolous lawsuits?
I believe so. I think what needs to happen is majority of the other countries around the world, they basically say if there's gross negligence on a property owner's part, and and they basically with the contributory factor to it, I think that would be a very good chance that if they lost, they pay for it. But if the plaintiff who sued and they lost the case, they basically have to pay the legal fees of the other party. That would basically deter a lot of these frivolous lawsuits that are coming in, because right now plaintiffs have nothing to lose. Zero. They have zero risk. All the risk is on the property owner. So I think if we implement certain laws that are in other countries, even other states, bring in that you need to basically have gross negligence or something, people just sue. Now, I mean, take that dog bite as an example. How is the property owner liable? I do not understand this. I'm confused.
Well, it's certainly nothing that's foreseeable. there's no warning that could have prevented that, assuming it actually happened, since they didn't inform you of it even happening. But yeah, I mean, that's essentially what happens is these trial lawyers are rolling the dice that if they file, it's a numbers game, file as many lawsuits as you can. And the cost to go to trial generally is so great that it is cheaper to settle the case. But then they go back to the business owner who's got the policy, and they just raise your rate. So it's for the
And
insurance company, it's a no-brainer.
it's to me, it's a Ponzi scheme. I call insurance companies a Ponzi scheme. It's like Bernie Madoff. This is Bernie Madoff's biggest Ponzi scheme. That's what it would be like, because they just bring in new money to pay out old claims. And when you, as a business owner, file a claim, insurance companies fight you. They nickel and dime you to death before they write you a check. They will not write you a check. They find every reason not to write a check.
Hmm.
I'm not sure as to what can happen, but I really believe insurance reform is going to be critical. And there are very few companies that are actually allowed to participate in the state of New Jersey, because um, um, the number of companies that have left the state of New Jersey because of its laws, it's atrocious. That it's part of the reason, because they can't win a case. So they're like, we will not write in the state of New Jersey, and that's basically what it is. And there are very few companies that are out there, right? Most of the companies that are owned by three people, if you really look at it, there are three people who own all the insurance companies around the world, or three companies, I should say.
Yeah. Well, speaking of insurance companies that won't come into the state or have left the state, New Jersey actually it leads the nation in out migration. So clearly the status quo isn't working. How can a Republican governor, assuming Jack Ciattarelli wins, reform the policy environment to make the state more attractive for small businesses and just ordinary families?
Well, I think he has all the right policies in place. Um, that he's, of course, advertising out there. But basically, cutting out all the fat that we have, all the extra regulation that and red tape that businesses have to go through to get anything done. Getting rid of all that, a lot of people would actually like to stay in the state of New Jersey. Um, I will tell you that if they basically reduce taxes, um, they cut regulation, they make it business friendly environment instead of making it a toxic environment where businesses have to literally jump through thousands of hoops. There's a tax for everything. There's a penalty for everything in the state. If they reduce some of those, and they just basically provide better infrastructure and better standard of living in the state, I think residents don't need to exit the state, because a lot of people have roots in New Jersey. Most people who move to the red states today all have roots, usually have roots in most of the blue states like New Jersey, right? Because they all started from densely populated areas, and they're all moving out because New Jersey has just become unaffordable. I think Jack's ideas of making it affordable with cutting all the regulation, the red tape, bringing the utilities in check, but also bringing in tort reform or insurance reform is going to be critical, because that basically helps reduce costs. Because if the insurance companies don't have to write checks for every silly liability claim, like that has no real bearing on property owners' mistake or gross negligence, I think the insurance rates would come down drastically. People will be able to afford things. I mean, look at the number of people who don't have insurance right on the Jersey Shore, and then the Murphy administration is complaining that oh, there are vultures out there who are grabbing all the properties from people who lost their houses because there was a catastrophe like Hurricane Sandy that came through. Well, they can't afford it. There's a reason why that happened, because they can't afford to rebuild. So they have to sell to get whatever they can get so they could rebuild.
Amazing. It, so where do we go from here as far as small businesses in New Jersey? I mean, there's so many headwinds. You got the government shutdown, but when you think back to just even as far back as COVID and the types of policies that we saw during COVID and and then the Biden administration with record inflation, record regulations, record illegal immigration. There's a lot of headwinds here that small businesses are trying to recover from. Are you looking at the big beautiful bill and how that might benefit your business in the next 12, 24 months?
I've really not thought that through. Um, right now we're just in survival mode because the government shutdown, like we said earlier, is really hurting us. A lot of people do not have discretionary money so it's eating into our basically savings as business owners. But at the same time, um, I haven't really seen the effects of the Trump administration's policies really come into play for us as yet, because I think every time he tries to do something, there's always a fight. so, so he's been blocked so many times. I don't think anything has been accomplished so far. I mean, this is like the first term. There was for him to accomplish something really is going to take some time. I think some of the things that he's done with the tariffs and stuff, trying to level the playing field, might work in the favor. But I do believe that it has increased the cost of living because of those policies. But I basically look at the big picture and I say, look, there's sometimes you have to do some short-term pain to have a long-term gain. And this is one of those long games. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe we can absorb a little bit of pain just to basically be better off in the long run, because he's right. We've been taken advantage of for years. I mean, how much debt can we possibly as a country absorb, right? Next thing you know, our country could be the next Venezuela or Turkey or something, where they went through massive inflation and their money went worthless, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I hate speaking in terms of short-term pain, but this is a long game for policy in terms of trade policy and getting us to a level playing field, opening up markets that we've been completely shut out of. And these are things that, we really needed a strong politician in place to make these hard decisions. Interestingly enough, when you look at inflation, because we did have inflation report this week, it really has, we've not seen the dire reports of inflation that were anticipated because of the tariffs. I'm not saying we haven't seen inflation in some specific areas. I mean, I know coffee is up a lot, but that's because we don't make coffee in the United States at all. So when you look at some specific industries, we're seeing inflation, but overall inflation has really remained steady, and it has been reduced over the Trump administration's time since he came into office. I wish that we had seen some bigger rate cuts, and I'm disappointed that the Fed has already basically said, don't expect it next month. In his comments.
I think Chairman Powell plays Chicken Little. If you've seen the movie, he just, and it's a tit for tat. I think Chair Powell is just basically trying to stick it to Trump, and I'm just like, dude, you need to work on reducing the rates because they're really affecting everybody on Main Street. I don't expect the rates to be what they were, 5 years ago, but I do expect some of the rates to come down, because I do not see how it's sustainable. A lot of the mortgages, a lot of people had 5-year arms, 7-year arms, 10-year arms on their residential mortgages, forget commercial mortgages, and they're resetting. And folks who were at 3% interest rate now going to 7% interest rate, they can't afford that. The cost of living did not go up that much. They didn't make those type of raises over the years to be able to afford a 7%. That's more than double the interest rate that they were paying just a few years ago or a few months ago. Like, if my rate reset today, that would basically double my mortgage. That is a burden to people. I think foreclosures will be on an all-time high, not to mention commercial properties take a bigger hit. Commercial properties have term loans. So every 5 or 10 years, rates have to reset and they have to refinance them out. And those rates, those folks who are at 4 or 5% interest rate now have to go to 6, 7, 8, 9% interest rates. They're all in decline. That's the reason asset values have declined. What a hotel or any commercial property that was worth 5 years ago, pre-COVID, let's say for hypothetical purposes, if a building was worth 5 billion pre-COVID, that same building today is worth 3.5 million. It is just not sustainable with the debt, the costs of operations. That is, if we kept just all the costs stagnant at the same level and the revenue the same, it's still the asset is worth less because just taking the interest rate factor makes the asset worth that much less money, right? And I think the interest rates definitely need to come down. But I personally believe this is just it's a personal vendetta between Trump and Powell that they just need to hash it out. But I think it's who doesn't have a vendetta against Trump apparently these days? It's like everybody in office just wants to fight him for everything because Trump said so, fight it. It's like, and I'm just like, you know, can we not be collateral damage in the way?
It does seem that way nowadays. That no matter what he does, there's a reason. There's a reason to fight him. So it's hard. It's hard not to think that, but I try to remain positive. Well, I think we have to try to kind of see what happens during the election for governor of New Jersey.
Taxes are key. We need to reduce those income taxes because we are the highest tax state in the state of New Jersey. We need to reduce those tax rates because if you tax people, they will just pick up and leave, and the rich can pick up and leave. That means you lose more off the top line. If the rich folks pick up and leave, that means you're losing that much more on the top line revenue because they generate more and they will just pick up. They'll move to Florida, Texas, what you may have. Now you get zero. This is the classic story of Robin Hood that, you know, if you basically tax people too much, they will just either pick up and leave. What are you going to jail everybody because they didn't pay enough taxes? I mean, what are you going to do?
Well, hopefully we'll find out what the residents of New Jersey think on November 4th and whether or not they want to change course with Jack Ciattarelli or continue with similar policies with the Democrat running, Mikey Sherrill. And we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. Thank you.
Well, good luck. Well, thank you, Rich, for joining us on Main Street Matters today. I really appreciate the time. This was an important discussion to have, particularly about the shutdown and how it's impacting your business. And thank you all for taking the time to tune in to Main Street Matters. Main Street Matters is part of the Salem Podcast Network. New episodes debut every Wednesday and Friday. You can tune into the show wherever you get your podcasts from, and we'll be back soon for another episode.